welcome to Barbato's Catholic Podcast, the show where two Mexican dads talk about faith, life, and culture. We are your hosts, Gustavo and Walter, and today we have episode 97 for you all. Is that crazy?
That's nuts.
So
Remember,
close to 100.
remember when we were in the tiny closet,
I know, in the boiler room.
touching our knees touching?
I know. Ivan loves to tell that story. It was very intimate. Let's just say that it was very intimate.
It was a very intimate podcast, very humble beginnings.
Yeah. And look at us now.
Look at us now.
I look the same color as the walls. It's
Yeah.
kind of, I need some sun.
Or better lights in your room.
Well, that too. Yeah.
Mhm.
But again, this is a DIY podcast. So
Thankfully, not a lot of people are looking at us on YouTube. So
that's a good point. We have like 6 views per videos. If you want to change that, go to youtube.com and look for Barbato's Catholic Podcast.
Yep.
You can help us out if you subscribe. Anyways, today I want to tell you a story that I stumbled upon that I thought that it was amazing. Okay, so we're gonna let's pretend that this is like a radio theater
Nice.
episode.
You want me to do effects?
He was on a horse.
That's fun. We should do that next.
We didn't rehearse it. This is so live. This is the magic of recording live. No editing. Okay. So the subject of this episode is a story about a young priest in 1936 in Spain. This is all in the middle of the Spanish Civil War. Religious intolerance was rampant, and priests were the target of mock trials, torture, and execution. This reminded me of the Cristero War.
Yeah.
In 1923, but Spain had it really bad because it was like 1936 with the Civil War, and then World War II broke out through Europe, so it was kind of a mess.
Yeah, they were getting it from everywhere.
I know. This young priest was en route to the Madrid Cathedral. As he approached the cathedral steps, he noticed a sinister-looking man purposefully walking towards him across the piazza. The man's hand was going towards an inside coat pocket, very obviously reaching for a gun. As the priest frantically looked for escape routes, he saw a large, thuggish-looking man moving swiftly to confront the would-be assassin. He blocked the assassin's path to the priest, and when the killer made to bypass him, he moved again in a threatening fashion to block the way. Thwarted, the killer turned on his heels and vanished into the crowd. The priest, meanwhile, was watching this drama spellbound. Then, to his dismay, the thug approached him then in a confidential manner, hissed in his ear, "Mangy Donkey! Mangy Donkey!" Immediately he turned around and striding off was soon out of sight. The priest was stunned, not only from the shock of narrowly missing death, but also from the thuggish man and the words he had whispered into his ear. "Mangy Donkey! Mangy Donkey!" These words were used by the priest when he went on his knees in front of the Blessed Sacrament each day. He would speak to our Lord, saying, "Lord, have mercy upon me, your unworthy servant. I am no more than a mangy donkey. Please have pity on me, your mangy donkey." It was then that the priest realized that, since he alone knew that he used these words in his dialogue with God, the thuggish man must have been his guardian angel. The priest then proceeded into the cathedral to give thanks for his salvation. Uh,
That's good. What happens next?
well, we want to reveal the identity of this young priest in 1936. Um, this was something that happened to Saint Jose Maria Escrivá de Balaguer, founder of Opus Dei. Um, and I learned that he was very fond of his guardian angel.
Hmm.
Um, this is another funny story. Aside from the Mangy Donkey, he would call his guardian angel his relojerico,
Wow.
which is watchmaker, because apparently Saint Jose Maria had a really bad alarm clock
Oh yeah.
that didn't go
Never
off
went off
exactly. So he would pray to his guardian angel. I have
to
to
wake
wake
him
up.
up.
To wake him up, and it never failed him. Um, so he was actually he started Opus Dei on the Feast of Guardian Angels on October 2nd,
Mm.
1928. So this is like a fun story about Saint Jose Maria and guardian angels and Opus Dei, because I feel like we've been talking about him, Saint Jose Maria, on and off
Hmm.
across all the 90 something episodes that we have made. So I felt it was time to talk about him.
Yep.
Do you know much about him?
Um, I haven't necessarily developed like a huge relationship with him. I know the basics. I know he's an amazing force to be reckoned with, especially when you're thinking about Catholic quotes. You know, if you want to grow in virtue, I think there's one of the best companions you can have is Jose Maria Escriva, because he just like calls it as it is. He doesn't pull any punches. I think he was a little bit of a short tempered kind of man, so it somebody we can relate to, you and I actually. Um,
Very
but
true.
the way he would speak, you know, it's very direct. He didn't mince words. Every word had weight, and it was dead on. It was very sure of himself, and it's 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 refreshing, you know. And I think men need to be talked to like that again, because
Yeah.
now everybody just gets so offended so quick that I don't know what that would have been like, you know, in his pastoral, being in his pastoral care. You'd
I
be
know.
crying.
It's so interesting to think about, like, okay, he was born in 1902 in northeast Spain, and I think he became priest maybe like around 1920 something,
Mm,
because he had the vision for Opus Dei in 1928. So he was ordained. So 1928, he is 26 years old. So he was probably ordained pretty young. Um, but then the succession of events that happened in Spain and Europe made it very difficult for him to accomplish that mission that was given to him by God, right?
mm,
There was the Spanish Civil War, and then the Second World War, which, even though Spain was neutral, it devastated all of Europe completely. So they were like having famines all across Europe, even though Spain was not involved in the war, but they were pretty decimated between their own like fighting.
yeah.
So it wasn't until like the 1950s, when Saint Jose Maria moved to Rome, that things started to pick up in terms of like the Opus Dei. And basically the message of Saint Jose Maria, once he opened it up to lay people, because I think this is one of the things that he had to get permission from the and approval from the Vatican and all that, is to create a lay organization that, simply put, would respond to the call of holiness by sanctifying where
Work.
they wear that work their work basically. Yeah,
Hmm.
sanctification through work. It's I was gonna make it more wordy, but it doesn't have to be. Yes, the work of God. So the work of God is like you are the hands and the feet and the mouth of Christ wherever you are. So if you happen to look for his, um, he did like a tour of like uh, Latin America and pretty much a global tour. But the videos that I've seen is he gets together with members of Opus Dei in several different countries in the world,
Mm.
and they have like a Q&A session. So they recorded those Q&A sessions, and looking at him speak so plainly, off the cuff almost,
Mm.
um, is it's pretty phenomenal. Like Fulton Sheen, but like in Spanish.
Yeah.
And like you said, he doesn't mince words. He is uh, still very fatherly, very pastoral. But when you read like Camino, which is one of his major publications that he produced, which like he was very fruitful in terms of like his writing and the things that he did. Um, there's like that famous little paragraph "Estovir," be a man,
Hmm.
um, which in the 1950s, if you see everybody, or even in the 70s when it was like in between 70 and 75 when things picked up for Opus Dei, in those Q&A sessions that are recorded, everyone is wearing a suit.
Yeah.
It's insane. Like the what now would be considered toxic masculinity, before that is like it was a different society.
Yeah. Yeah. It was just a standard. It was a different way of carrying yourself.
Yeah.
We always see Carolina always brings this up. My wife is very acute to this when we were watching a movie about a bygone era,
Uh-huh.
the 20s, the 30s, the 40s. People dressed like they reflected the dignity of the person by the way they dressed.
Yeah.
um and she always like New York, in the 50s and the 40s.
Hmm.
Everybody no matter how poor you were, everybody had a nice coat, a nice suit,
Right.
that. And it's weird because everybody kind of like looked the same, because everybody had neutral colors and whatnot.
Hmm.
But there was some niceness to it. I don't know. It was everything's so noisy now. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
just in the way people dress. I'm not bashing anybody because I'm not the best dressed person. I
I
could
mean,
definitely
we're both
try
wearing
better.
t-shirts right now.
I could definitely try better on that sense. But the standard was different back then, right? I mean,
Yes.
even people who were gonna work on the car had like a nice white shirt underneath white. You're gonna work on with oil. Let's wear white, but let's. That they used like a nice apron. I don't know. There was just something about it. There was some. What's the word I'm missing? Class. A lot of class to it.
Mm-hmm, hmm, hmm. Yeah, and I guess in well, we could talk about uh, you know how a man should dress. That should probably be a good conversation for another
Not
episode.
like this.
Not like this, but yeah, if you're looking at us on YouTube. But regardless of that, the way that people carry themselves, yes, but the
Hmm.
message is still relevant. I think even more so
Hmm.
today. What Saint Jose Maria was trying to convey, and just I think he had like just this magnetic personality, the way that he spoke, the way that he carried
Hmm.
himself. He was always like in a cassock or like uh, with his clerics, you know, very
Mm-hmm.
traditional Roman Catholic priest. Um, it was just, even though it's not that far away from today, it also feels like an eternity ago. That things
Mm-hmm.
have changed so much, and not that we're being like, uh, like that movie Midnight in Paris, that they're always thinking that the era before them was better than the era that we are living right now. That's exactly the point. Like, we are called to be saints in this era,
Mm-hmm.
in this year, and while we are alive right now, with the conditions that we have right now, um, and looking for inspiration from the saints that have come before us. Like you said, people like Saint Jose Maria Escriva, that he was being like telling this guy that had like a newspaper stand, and the man was like, "What can I do for Opus Dei if I'm like a newspaper owner, a kiosk owner?" And Saint Jose Maria was like, "Be honest and
Mm-hmm.
don't have dirty magazines on your kiosk." Things like that, it's like, always deal with people honestly and fairly.
Mm-hmm.
um so very applicable to whatever you are doing, and those things that you're doing with your work, if you do it for the glory of God, you're sanctifying your life, you're sanctifying work in your day to day.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't have to be a missionary in a foreign country. You can do your work and do it right,
Mm-hmm.
and get graces and build a kingdom wherever
Mm-hmm.
you are.
Yeah, and show the face of Jesus wherever you are, like you said, in terms of being in your professional environment. This was one of the big drivers of TLI, Tepeyac Leadership Initiative, that Christopher, who we've had on the podcast, really focused on. It's like now is the hour of the lady, and how are we going to change the world is by being saints in the place that God called us to be. So if you're an accountant, if you're a lawyer, if you're a doctor, all of those different areas of life, if you're stay at home mom, even more so, because you're like literally building up souls as a stay at home mom.
And society.
And yeah, in the society. So that was the big impetus of it. It's like be holy in any type of situation that you are, and especially when it relates to work. You know, every type of work can be sanctifying if we give it that focus. If we're focused on just making money and having a good living and
Yeah.
advancing our career and getting accolades and being renowned and revered by your peers and whatnot, well, okay, the focus is something different. Be good so others can be good, so others can become better. um, and that was something that really drew me to the program initially, because I was like, how am I going to be like holy being like a graphic designer,
Yeah. What
and
does it look like to be
ex-
holy as a
uh-huh.
graphic designer? Yeah.
Yeah, and it just like working through the program, it kind of like shows you, is like there's so many different needs. You can use your talents for so many different aspects, depending on where you are, and you don't have to, like you said, go be a missionary or be at church 6 days a week, volunteering. It's amazing if you can do that, and I know we
Right.
need more of that, but we don't need only that. We need people to be out in the secular world evangelizing through their life and through what God really called them to be.
Yeah. And I had this conversation with Oliver a while ago, because, he was like, I want to be, he goes back and forth. He's like, I want to be a dad, It's
Mm.
like, no, I want to be a priest. I want to be a priest who is a daddy. I'm like, that, it's possible, but not at optimal, but it makes you think, right? Like
Hmm.
building a family that has strong bonds, uh, building a good Catholic foundation with your kids. Priests come from families, period.
Yep.
So if you are doing a good job as a father, as a mother, where you are passing on the faith to your children, and if it's God's will, and if you cultivate your children's vocation, you know, maybe there's a vocation for the priesthood or to be a sister in one of your children, and we need to foster that. I think
Hmm.
sometimes like it can be scary to think, oh my goodness, if one of my sons becomes a priest, they're going to be, you know, basically they're going to have a target on their backs because
Mm.
how priests, with as with everything, there are good priests and bad priests, and they're human. They can fall, obviously, but the point is we need to make it sure that we pray for them and form them as good humans that might not, or the let me say it in the positive, that will stay faithful to our Lord
Hmm.
and will do the work of God. Um, because if we don't have priests, we don't have the Eucharist and the
Hmm.
sacraments.
Yep.
There's no church. So holy families are
Yep.
just as important as priests.
Totally.
Um, Speaking of that, I just remembered of a um, story related to Saint Jose Maria that I'm glad that it triggered in my brain when Diana and I were dating. My spiritual director gave me a prayer for the family um, that was composed by Saint Jose Maria Escriva.
Mm.
And Diana and I would pray that prayer together for our future family. And I probably lost like the pamphlet that the priest that was my spiritual director gave me, but we prayed it until we got uh, married. And since I lost it, I don't, I have to Google it to see like what it was, and we can still do that tradition. But when I took Deanna to Monterrey to meet my family,
Mm.
like the week that we got engaged, in Monterrey's cathedral, we were looking around, and one of the side altars had a first class relic of Saint Jose Maria.
Mm.
So it was kind of like a, a cool wink from God to be like, oh, you
That's
guys have been
awesome.
praying to the saint. Look at this. Um, so we prayed there, and it was a kind of exciting moment to be like, oh my goodness,
That's so cool.
it's here, right here, like a little fragment, which also, for other people it would be like super weird. It's like you were praying in front of like someone's piece of bone, and you get excited about it. But it's the significance of the relic, not necessarily like the piece of bone of a saint. It's just that
Hmm.
that person lived a heroic life and was giving their complete yes to God, and they accomplished good things with their actions,
Hmm.
which is everybody's call to holiness again.
Yeah.
So, um,
Yeah. For me, the every time that I think of Saint Jose Maria, this one quote comes up, and we put it on the back of one of the retreats T-shirts. Be firm, be virile, be a man, then be a saint. So I think for me that's been it's really spoken to me ever since we've used that, um, because that's tough. That he's giving you really tough steps, and then he's just like, okay, and then you still gotta be a saint.
what's the first one?
Be firm,
Be firm. Okay,
be
which is
virile,
virile, which means need to be strong in the
Mm-hmm.
physical sense,
Mm-hmm.
and manly.
Mm-hmm. And then be a
Uh,
man. So
okay.
basically, just hold your own, protect the innocent,
Mm,
the dignity of women,
mm,
and then be a saint.
mm,
So I think it's a tall order, but it's not impossible because he did it. There's plenty of saints that did it, but that's always kind of like stuck with me for some reason. Every time that frustration kicks in or you get disheartened by work or something, you're like, we should have that like as a poster on.
hmm.
How they have those cheesy corporate
Motivational ones.
motivational posters, with an eagle soaring. This should just be the face of Jose Maria saying these words on a daily basis. And I think everybody would be kind of like shaping up just not to let him down. I don't think I want to let that guy down.
Oh, for sure. It's like one of those padrecitos regañones.
Hmm.
They're gonna scold you when you're in the confessional.
So,
um, but yeah, be firm, be virile, be a man, then be a saint. Man, that's amazing.
yeah.
I've been thinking a lot about physical strength and masculinity. And I'm going to mix conversations because I think it kind of goes with the topic.
Mm.
Um, I was listening to an episode of a diocesan podcast here. It's called from the Diocese of Phoenix, called Parenting Smarts.
Okay.
Are you familiar with it?
No, I haven't listened to it yet.
So, anyways, they had someone on to talk about authentic masculinity, and one of the things that this guest was saying is that men are now fighting against uh, Game Boy, Playboy, and Lazy Boy. We had to revert those three things
Mm-hmm.
because video games are like keeping men as children.
Mm-hmm.
Then Playboy, it's not motivating anybody to get off their asses and talk to an actual woman
Mm-hmm.
in person, in you know be in a relationship, get married, and having kids and forming a family. In Lazy Boy, because you know and this is, they said, for myself, as I said, for whoever is listening that might fit in this category, but I could do better with physical preparedness,
Mm-hmm.
not being on the couch so much, but getting a workout or two in every week. It is important. It
Yep.
is important for a man to be strong. It is important for a man to be virile. It's
Mm-hmm.
important for a man to look like a man,
Mm-hmm.
to to carry himself like a man, and just like women are called to embrace femininity, we are called to embrace masculinity. Even though right now mainstream culture tells men the opposite, right? That they can
Correct.
be kids forever.
Hmm. And that's
And
exactly what's happening. I think it's the culture is just it's letting itself be taken for the ride because of all these conveniences that
yeah,
are readily available.
yeah. And speaking of conveniences, um, at the time of recording, this is I'm on day 8 of Exodus 90. I don't learn. I don't know why. This is the fourth time that I'm doing Exodus 90. But you know what? I'm so happy. It feels so freeing to not have TV or social media
Yeah.
or um, sports or news. Like Deanna is like keeping me up with everything that is happening with the scandal with the royal family in the UK and the book and whatnot. And I'm like, this is very entertaining, unnecessary,
Hmm.
but very entertaining.
I know.
That I am. blissfully unknowing of all of these things, and I made it a challenge this year to, instead of 20 minutes of prayer a day as prescribed, I've been trying to go to the chapel and do a holy hour um, every day. I
Hmm.
missed one day so far because I was in Sedona with Oliver. We did like a father son trip.
What, they don't have churches up there or what?
They do have churches, but try to keep a 6 year old sitting down for an hour in a chapel. That's
That's a tall order.
that's a tall order.
Hmm.
So I just did like my 20 minutes of prayer that day.
That's right.
So it definitely puts into perspective priorities,
Hmm.
right? Um, Before I was like, I need to do this, I need to do this, I need to do this, and then if I have time, I'll pray,
Yeah.
um, or I'll exercise, I'll get a workout in.
Hmm.
So now it's like, since I don't have apps on my phone more than my calculator and my calendar, something like that. I'm exaggerating. I have more things than that, but um, I was like, today I was playing checkers with Deanna and the boys, and we had a great time. It's still difficult, obviously, because the habit of reaching for your phone and click, click, click to get like that uh, reward from like the slot machine.
Hmm.
I'm pretty accustomed to that. I'm not gonna
Yeah.
lie, um, but definitely is something that those things that you call them comodidades, or what it
Conveniences
conveniences.
or
Yes, everything
comforts. Yeah.
comforts. Yeah, when you remove those, then you can just lean on God heavily
Hmm.
for everything. And a lot of people don't want to do that because it is very uncomfortable.
Yeah.
It's very uncomfortable to actually do what we are supposed to do. It's
Hmm.
easier to do anything else and procrastinate and not do the harder thing, um, or something that would be that would get any progress in like the spiritual life or in our physical state and our health, because it's going to take effort. And I don't know, Saint Jose Maria is a saint that I feel like he would be a good drill sergeant slash spiritual director slash fitness coach. That he would like be like, you are going to do it, you can do it because of this and this,
Hmm.
and it is your mission, and it is um, your ideal to do these things. Um, that's my idea, like, of how I envision him.
Yeah.
I could be completely wrong, but
No, I think you're totally right. I think he would have really appreciated Exodus 90 as a practice. I think it's going back to Jose Maria Escriva and how he would get people potentially out of their comfort zone. I think
yes,
that's what's missing. All of these things are just distractions, and God knows I'm plenty guilty of it. I don't consider myself to be like on my phone like a lot. I don't do a lot of social media and stuff. As far as I go is like I just sometimes get lost in Instagram reels for fun. Is for fun, like
it's
Nacho
for
Libre
fun.
says, you know. And Caro and I just share those with each other because it's so funny, you know. Sometimes we're just if she's at downstairs or something and finds one and she sends it to me and she's just like cracking up and I gotta see this, you know. So
Yeah,
it's not something that we typically just isolate each other, you know. And no, we share that part of it, and we share it with the girls too, you know, the ones that we can show. um and it's just fun, you know. It's funny, but that's as far as I go. I don't do social media. I don't do Twitter. I don't do Facebook. I don't do all that stuff. And on Instagram, I
You're
very
managing Barbatos for now.
I yeah, that I think. But very seldomly post. So I'm not like constantly on there doing lives and doing this thing. Not to say that I couldn't do better, but I think there's definitely a balance, and also the type of content you receive is also important, because I follow a lot of really good uh, accounts on Instagram, and you kind of like build one into one of your sentences right now. Do the harder thing,
Right.
that.
Yes.
Yeah, that guy's like amazing. Um, who's the other one? Catholic, the
Catholicism.
Catholicism or grassroots Catholic, all these different things, and Father Mike and Bishop Barron and all these different accounts that just good things keep popping up on the feed. So if you kind of like balance stuff out like that, I'm not saying just get all your catechism from Instagram. Obviously, no. Pick up a book, pick up the Bible, pick up catechism in a year. Um,
Pray.
Pray. Dedicate time to prayer. Dedicate time to silent meditation. Look at a crucifix. Look at an image of Our Lady. All these things will build up the habit of a more prayerful day. The thing is that we gotta get, at least me, I try to get out of this mentality of just praying and then being done with it. No, we gotta pray all throughout the day. We just gotta surround ourselves with prayer. If
Yeah.
you're on your phone and a little prayer pops up from something, take 30 seconds and pray it wholeheartedly. So I think we can be more mindful about, yes, the content that we consume, but also not just be rigid about having the 20-minute or the hour in the morning. If I don't get it, then I don't get it, and then I'll try again tomorrow. No, just build prayer into your day, into your meals. Take 5 times before a meeting and say, God, I hope this meeting goes really well. I offer anything that I'm going to be doing in this meeting to you, and take care of me so I don't do something bad. Boom. You
I'm not
prayed.
full of myself.
Yeah, you prayed in those 10 seconds. If we can develop this habit of, yes, praying the rosary daily, having a devotional that it's your go-to, I think it's super important. But I went off on a tangent, but I think it's important to just state that somebody like Jose Maria would be very good at keeping you on your toes, and that you need to have receipts, because he's not gonna be, okay, it's
Hmm.
fine, you can try again tomorrow. No, he's gonna be very, very direct. One of the
Hmm.
another quotes is like, if you have so many defects, why are you surprised to find defects in others? Okay, yeah, I get it. It's like, easy there, Father.
s- just pick up Camino or
Hmm.
Forge. My goodness, it's
Yeah.
just it's like I was rereading Imitation of Christ, um, and I read like the kind of like the instructions,
Hmm.
and and part of it was saying like read one page a day, because if you do more than that, you can get spiritual indigestion. So I think that with Jose Maria is kind of the same. If you're gonna pick up anything that he has written, maybe you will need like a swift kick in the bottom to get you going. It's gonna be like one paragraph
Hmm.
of Camino, or I would say start with Camino if you're like new to Saint Jose Maria Escriva. And also, we need to make the mangy donkey a thing, man.
Dude, yes.
Mangy donkey for life. Hashtag mangy donkey. Make it a thing
Hmm.
on Twitter. Even though we're not on Twitter, but make it trending. I don't know.
Hmm.
It could be a thing. It maybe is a thing. I think Opus Dei is and somehow associated with the mangy donkey. I need to ask Ryan Ayala because he's
Yeah.
a big fan of San Jose Maria. But in the meantime, hopefully you got something out of this conversation that had a lot to do with Opus Dei and prayer and being a man. And if you know men that could benefit from listening to this episode, share it with them. Um, and if they have something to complain about what we said, just tell them to talk to us. We'll be happy to have a conversation with them. Thank you so much for listening. Please go to direct.me/Barbatus for more information on the podcast. And we will see you next week. Until then, bless us, Casey.
Pray for us.
See you next week. Bye bye.